Violence of extremists and opportunists, right-wing militias, 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 militias.
I apologize. We seem to be having a technical difficulty with the video. We're going to take a quick break and be right back when we sort it out.
Is not protesting. Setting fires is not protesting. None of this is protesting. It's lawlessness, plain and simple. And those who do it should be prosecuted. Violence will not bring change. It'll only bring destruction. It's wrong in every way. It divides instead of unites. Destroys businesses, only hurts the working families that serve the community. It makes things worse across the board, not better. No, it's not what Dr. King or John Lewis taught, and it must end. Fires are burning, and we have a president who fans the flames rather than fighting the flames. But we must not burn. We have to build. This president long ago forfeited any moral leadership in this country. He can't stop the violence because for years he's fomented it. You know, he may believe mouthing the words law and order makes him strong, but his failure to call on his own supporters to stop acting as an armed militia in this country shows how weak he is. Does anyone believe there'll be less violence in America if Donald Trump is reelected? We need justice in America. We need safety in America. We're facing multiple crises. Crises under Donald Trump have kept multiplying. COVID, economic devastation, unwarranted police violence, emboldened white nationalists, a reckoning on race, declining faith in the birth of the right American future. There's no reason why we can't just do so much more than we're doing. The common thread, the incumbent president who makes things worse, not better. An incumbent president who sows chaos rather than providing order. An incumbent president who fails in the basic duty of the job, which is to advance the truth that all of us know, that we're all born with the right to life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. That's right, all of us. The moms and dads in Scranton, where I grew up, who have worked and scraped for everything they've ever gotten in life. The auto worker in Michigan, who still makes the best automobile in the world. The single mom in Ohio working 3 jobs just to stay afloat, who'll do anything for her child. Retired veteran in Florida, who gave everything he had to this country and now just wants us to honor the promises made to him. Lord & Taylor salesperson who just lost their job, a store closing after 194 years in business. Nurses and doctors in Wisconsin who've seen so much sickness, so much death in the past 6 months. And they wonder how much more can they take? But still they muster up the courage to take care of those patients in this pandemic while risking their own lives. Researchers in Minnesota who woke up this morning determined to find a breakthrough in treating cancer. And will do the same thing tomorrow and the day after and the day after because she'll never give up. White, black, Latino, Asian American, Native Americans, everybody. I'm in this campaign for you, no matter your color, no matter your zip code, no matter your politics. When I think of the presidency, I don't think about myself. It isn't about my brand, it's about you, the American people. We can do better, and we have to do better. And I promise you this, we will do better. You know, the road back begins now in this campaign. You know me. You know my heart. You know my story, my family story. Ask yourself, do I look like a radical socialist with a soft spot for rioters? Really? I want a safe America, safe from COVID, safe from crime and looting, safe from racially motivated violence, safe from bad cops. Let me be crystal clear. safe from 4 more years of Donald Trump. I look at this violence and I see lives and communities and the dreams of small businesses being destroyed, and the opportunity for real progress on the issues of race and police reform and justice being put to the test. Donald Trump looks at this violence and he sees a political lifeline. Having failed to protect this nation from the virus that has killed more than 180,000 Americans so far, Trump posts an all-caps tweet screaming "law and order" to save his campaign. One of his closest political advisors in the White House doesn't even bother to speak in code. She just comes out and she says it. Quote, "The more chaos, violence, the better it is for Trump's reelection." Just think about that. This is a sitting president of the United States of America. He's supposed to be protecting his country, but instead he's rooting for chaos and violence. The simple truth is, Donald Trump failed to protect America. So now he's trying to scare America. Since Donald Trump and Mike Pence can't run on the record that has seen more American deaths to a virus, this virus, than the nation suffered in every war since Korea combined. Since they can't run on their economy that has seen more people lose their jobs than any time since the Great Depression, since they can't run on the simple proposition of sending our children safely back to school, since they have no agenda or vision for a second term, Trump and Pence are running on this, and I find it fascinating. Quote, "You won't be safe in Joe Biden's America." And what's their proof? The violence we're seeing in Donald Trump's America. These are not images of some imagined Joe Biden America in the future. These are images of Donald Trump's America today. He keeps telling you, if only he was president, it wouldn't happen. If he was president. He keeps telling us that he was president, you'd feel safe. Well, he is president, whether he knows it or not. And it is happening. It's getting worse. And you know why? Because Donald Trump adds fuel to every fire. Because he refuses to even acknowledge that there's a racial justice problem in America. Because he won't stand up to any form of violence. He's got no problem with right-wing militia, white supremacists, and vigilantes with assault weapons, often better armed than the police, often in the middle of the violence at the protesters and aiming it there. And because tens of millions of Americans simply don't trust this president to respect their rights, to hear their concerns, or to protect them. It doesn't have to be this way. When President Obama and I were in the White House, we had to defend federal property. We did it. We didn't see it. You didn't see us whipping up fears around the deployment of secret federal troops. We just did our job, and the federal property was protected. When President Obama and I were in office, we didn't look at cities as Democratic or Republican run. These are American cities. But Trump doesn't see himself as president for all of America. Frankly, I believe if I were president today, the country would be safer and we'd be seeing a lot less violence, and here's why. I have said we must address the issue of racial injustice. I've personally spoken to George Floyd's family and to Jacob Blake's family. I know their pain, and so do you. I know the justice they seek, and so do you. They've told us none of this violence respects or honors George or Jacob. I believe we can bring these folks fighting for racial justice to the table. I've worked with police in this country for many years. I know most cops are good, decent people. I know how they risk their lives every time they put that shield on and go out the door. And I'm confident I can bring the police to the table as well. I'd make sure every mayor and governor had the support they needed from the federal government, but I wouldn't be looking to use the United States military against our own people. If I were president, my language would be less divisive. I'd be looking to lower the temperature in this country, not raise it. I'd be looking to unite the nation. But look, if Donald Trump wants to ask the question, who will keep you safer as president? Let's answer that question. First, some simple facts. When I was vice president, violent crime fell 15% in this country. We did it without chaos and disorder. And yes, we did it with Democratic mayors in most of the major cities in this country. The murder rate now is up 26% across the nation this year under Donald Trump. Do you really feel safer under Donald Trump? COVID has taken this year, just since the outbreak, has taken more than 100 years. Look, here's the lives, when you think about it, more lives this year than any other year for the past 100 years. More than 180,000 lives in just 6 months. An average of 1,000 people dying every day in the month of August. Do you really feel safer under Donald Trump? Mr. Trump, you want to talk about fear? Do you know what people are afraid of in America? They're afraid they're going to get COVID. They're afraid they're going to get sick and die. And that is in no small part because of you. We're now on track to more than 200,000 deaths in this country due to COVID. More than 100,000 seniors have lost their lives to the virus. More cops have died from COVID this year than have been killed on patrol. Nearly 1 in 6 small businesses is closed in this country today. Do you really feel safer under Trump? What about Trump's plan to destroy the Affordable Care Act? And with it, the protections for pre-existing conditions that impacts more than 100 million Americans. Does that make you feel safer? Or how about Trump's plan to defund Social Security? The Social Security Administration's chief actuary just released a report saying that if a plan like the one Trump is proposing goes into effect, the Social Security Trust Fund would be, and I quote, permanently depleted by the middle of calendar year 2023 with no ability to pay benefits thereafter. Put it plainly, Trump's plan would wipe out Social Security, period. You feel safer and more secure now? The fear that reigns under this president doesn't stop at our shores. The Kremlin has put bounties on the heads of American soldiers. And instead of telling Vladimir Putin that there'll be no putting up with this, that there'll be a heavy price to pay if they dare touch an American soldier, this president doesn't even bring up the subject in his multiple phone calls with Putin. Been reported that Russian forces just attacked American troops in Syria, injuring our service members. Did you hear the president say a single word? Did he lift one finger? Never before has an American president played such a subservient role to a Russian leader. It's not only dangerous, it's humiliating and embarrassing for the rest of the world to see. It weakens us. Not even American troops can feel safer under Trump. Donald Trump's role as a bystander in his own presidency extends to the economic plan and pain. The plan he doesn't have and the pain being felt by millions of Americans. He said this week, and I quote, "You better vote for me or you're going to have the greatest depression you've ever seen." Does he not understand and see the tens of millions of people who've had to file for unemployment this year so far? The people who won't be able to make next month's rent payment? The people who lost wages while the cost of groceries have gone up dramatically? President Obama and I stopped the depression in 2009. We took a bad economy that was falling and turned it around. Trump took a good economy and drove it back into the ditch. through his failure to get COVID under control, his failure to pull together the leaders in Congress, his failure to deliver real relief to working people, has made our country's economic situation so much worse than it had to be. When we talk about safety and security, we should talk about basic security of being able to look your child in the eye and tell them everything's going to be okay. Don't worry, honey, we're not going to lose our home. We're going to be able to put food on the table. It's going to be okay. It's the job of a president. I've laid out an agenda for economic recovery that will restore a sense of security for working families. We won't just build things back the way they were before. We're going to build them back better, with good-paying jobs, building our nation's roads, bridges, solar arrays, windmills, with investments in our health care and child care workers so they get the pay and dignity they deserve, while easing the financial burdens on millions of families. With a clean energy strategy that is a place for the energy workers right here in Western Pennsylvania. I am not banning fracking. Let me say that again. I am not banning fracking, no matter how many times Donald Trump lies about me. This future, the future, that's what this is all about. You know, we hear Donald Trump's self-centered rants and riffs, but the voice of Americans should be heard. The one you should listen to is Julia Jackson, the mother of Jacob Blake. Hers is a voice of courage, character, and wisdom. In looking at the damage that has been done in her city, she said, quote, "The violence and destruction doesn't reflect my son or my family." These are the words of a mom, a mother, whose son had just been shot 7 times in front of his children, badly injured, paralyzed, perhaps permanently. And even as she seeks justice for her son, she's pleading for an end to the violence and for this nation to heal. She said she was praying for her son. Then she said something to me that surprised me. She said she was praying for all police officers. She said she was already been praying for America even before her son was shot. She's publicly asked all of us to examine our hearts. Citizens, elected officials, the police, all of us. And then she said this, quote, "We need healing. More than anything, that's what we need to do as a nation. We need to heal. The current president wants you to live in fear. He advertises himself as a figure of order. He isn't. And he's not been part of the solution thus far. He's part of the problem. The problem that I, as president, will give you my all resolve to stop. I'll deal with the virus. I'll deal with the economic crisis. And I'll work to bring equality and opportunity to everyone. We've arrived at a moment in this campaign we all knew, including the press in front of me, knew we'd get to. The moment when Donald Trump would be so desperate he'd do anything to hold on to power. Donald Trump has been a toxic presence in our nation for 4 years, poisoning how we talk to one another, poisoning how we treat one another, poisoning the values this nation has always held dear, poisoning our very democracy. Now, in just a little over 60 days, we have a decision to make. Will we rid ourselves of this toxin? Or will we make a permanent part? We make it a permanent part of our nation's character. You know, as Americans, I'm confident we believe in honesty and decency, treating everyone with dignity and respect, giving everyone a fair shot, leaving no one behind, giving hate no safe harbor, and demonizing no one. We up to now always recognize there's something bigger than ourselves as we're about. Trump doesn't seem to believe in any of that. Look, I've said it before and I'll keep saying it. America's an idea. It's the most powerful idea in the history of the world. And I believe it beats in the hearts of the people of this country. All men and women are created equal. And they deserve to be treated equally. Trump has sought to remake this nation in his image. Selfish, angry, dark, and divisive. This is not who we are. At her best, America has always been, and if I have anything to do with it, will be again generous, confident, an optimistic nation, full of hope and resolve. Donald Trump is determined to instill fear in America. That's what his entire campaign for the presidency has come down to, fear. But I believe Americans are stronger than that. I believe we'll be guided by the words of Pope John Paul II, words drawn from the Scriptures. Be not afraid. Be not afraid. Fear never builds the future, but hope does. And building the future is what America does, what we've always done. In fact, it's what we have done best and continue to do best. This is the United States of America. There's not a single thing beyond our capacity when we decide to do it together. So let's get together. I want to thank you all. May God bless you, and may God protect our troops.
And we've just been listening to Democratic candidate Joe Biden delivering a speech on safety and security in the U.S. from Pittsburgh there. He placed the blame for the violence and unrest squarely on the president's shoulders, saying that President Trump's divisive and toxic rhetoric is to blame. He called the president a toxin to our country and our democracy. For more on this, let's bring in CBS News political correspondent Ed O'Keefe. Ed, you know, it seems like President Trump has been controlling the airways in recent days with his law and order stance. Was this speech choreographed in such a way to sort of reset the narrative in Biden's favor?
Well, it's an astute observation, Tanya, and let's put it this way. On Friday, there were no plans for this speech. As of yesterday, there were. What happened between Friday and today? A few things. Obviously, the situation in Portland continued to unravel on top of some of the scenes that were seen, and very limited in scope, but seen nonetheless late Thursday into Friday here in Washington when Senator Rand Paul was leaving the Republican convention proceedings on the South Lawn of the White House. And yes, the president had stepped up his tweeted rhetoric, as Mr. Biden just pointed out there, regarding law and order concerns or safety in this country. And very quickly over the weekend, you could kind of see where things are headed over the next 64 days, at least as of Monday. The president claiming that if you elect Joe Biden, the country's going to be more dangerous. Joe Biden saying, hold on, all of this is happening under your watch, Mr. President. If you're reelected, the country's going to be more dangerous. And you also don't know how to sort out the pandemic or deal with the economic downturn. But Biden going full throttle into the president's claims there, saying at one point, you may have seen it, do I really look like a socialist who has a soft spot for rioters? A great line, because it sort of asks the viewer, asks the voter to think about that for a second and go, come on, you know my history, you know my record, you know that I'm not that kind of Democrat. This has more potential to infuriate those on the left of his party, perhaps, than those in the middle. But if we know anything about Joe Biden, it's that he'd rather win the people who work in that building in Pittsburgh, who are less likely to be socialists and sympathetic to people who have been in the streets, and more interested in winning over moderate Democrats, independents, and disaffected Republicans who are looking for a reason to not vote for President Trump.
Absolutely. And so, Ed, why did Biden deliver a speech like this one in Pittsburgh, of all places? What might this tell us about the current mindset of the...
Yeah. No, it's a good question. Sorry. We thought there had been some suggestion that Biden might try to get to Wisconsin ahead of the president who's scheduled to be there tomorrow. Don't be surprised if he goes there in the next week to 10 days or so. We've still got plenty of time in this election. But instead, he decided to go to his favorite swing state, which just happens to be next door to his home state of Delaware, Pennsylvania, and spoke in Pittsburgh. There's some symbolism with going to Pittsburgh. It's where his campaign actually launched last year, and it's where he marched most Labor Day weekends in a huge union parade, labor union parade, that is held in Pittsburgh every year. Parade isn't being held this year, so this perhaps was his excuse to go back to Pittsburgh, where he usually finds himself at the end of most Augusts, beginning of most Septembers around Labor Day. So that's part of it. He also knows that if he has any shot at winning Pennsylvania, he's got to win southwestern Pennsylvania, or at least do better than Hillary Clinton did 4 years ago. It's a part of the state he knows well, part of the state that knows him well, so it's essentially safe territory. Are there plans for him to campaign across the country, get on a plane and actually go east of the Appalachian Trail or west of the Appalachian Trail? Yes, he has said himself, Minnesota, Arizona, Wisconsin, other parts of Pennsylvania, Michigan are all on the agenda, and we should expect that we will see him make similar trips in the future. But this is an easy private jet ride for him from Delaware. He'll go back there tonight, and that's likely the pattern that we'll see him continue, as the president has done. Take a day trip, fly out, come back, and get as much done as he can in that state. But Pennsylvania has been his go-to over the course of this pandemic. He's given a few speeches in the Philadelphia and Scranton area. Today went a little farther to Pittsburgh.
And so, Ed, looking at the calendar, if history is any indication, August can be a tumultuous month when there is unrest like this, throughout the country. So can we expect this to be the seminal issue leading up to the election? And if so, who does it favor, Biden or President Trump? Because, we have seen these right-wing armed militias adding to the tension, and we've seen President Trump sort of turn a blind eye to them. So at the end of the day, is the president playing a dangerous game by calling himself the law and order president?
Well, is law and order going to dominate the conversation? Look, it dominated the weekend. It is dominating Monday, the 31st of August. We'll see with 64 days to go if this remains the dominant issue. The president would like it to be. And his team was quite happy today to see Joe Biden scramble to put together this speech and make this quick trip. They argue he's gotten out of his basement. And look, he's been out of his basement for a while. If anything, he's been at his beach home in Rehoboth, or he's been at the Democratic convention. He's not just in his basement. And he had said before this weekend that he had plans to start traveling again after Labor Day. Obviously, they had to hasten things. If the Trump campaign has their way, yes, law and order will be the dominant issue, and they'll continue to be able to fight on it. It's partly designed to distract or to change the subject from the COVID situation and the struggling economy, and put the president in a better position on an issue where he believes he has done better. But I think, as you just saw Biden do there, he raised some questions, suggesting that the murder rate nationwide has gone up over the past year on Donald Trump's watch, that more police officers, and this is something we're going to have to fact check, so I don't want to repeat it too much, but he claimed that more police officers have been killed by COVID this year than in the line of duty. That'll be an interesting one for fact checkers to check on. Throwing it back at the president, saying, if you want to have a debate about law and order, happy to do so, because all of this is happening under your watch. So it's only Monday. Let's see, Tanya, if by Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, the president is still discussing this, or if they've perhaps seen something that suggests they've got to change the subject yet again.
Right. And of course, once fall hits, like you said, there could be other issues dominating headlines. But Ed O'Keefe, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Good to see you.
And we're going to take a quick break now. We'll be right back with much more news. Stay with us. You're streaming CBSN, CBS News, always on.
COVID has taken the lives of tens of thousands of Americans. Rural areas like this here on Navajo Nation are especially hit hard.
15 to 30% of our Navajo citizens don't have running water.
In any indigenous reservation, there is a shortage of physicians.
Native Americans are amongst the most vulnerable and hardest hit by COVID.
Yeah, the more we lose our elders to COVID-19, the more we lose our language and our way of life.
We need to bring awareness to the attention of Washington, D.C. and United States citizens that there is a need to focus on the first citizens of this country.
CBSN Los Angeles. Get local news, breaking news, anytime, anywhere. It's easy to find us, and it's free.
Download the CBS News app on your favorite devices. CBSN Los Angeles, streaming 24/7. CBSN Pittsburgh, your neighborhood news, streaming 24/7. Anytime, anywhere. Find it on kdka.com and on all your favorite devices.
In 60 years, we went from about 100,000 factory workers to probably about 7,000.
Off in the distance, you can see some factories that are still humming, but most of them are just kind of abandoned.
The restaurant industry right now is one of the largest and fastest growing industries in America. And yet it continues to be the absolute lowest paying employer in the United States.
Barely anybody's making enough to live.
You were donating plasma to get by.
It's literally a slave wage.
I don't remember growing up like this. My mom didn't have to go to food banks. It's pretty sad.
You can watch CBSN 24/7.
We've got an amazing story to share with you.
I understand you have some breaking news.
How